Let's see. When we yesterday we finished our second attempt at the Kata project, Godot Kata project, and today we're gonna work on PTAO again. We are going to be refactoring a bit. Well, I say refactor, I mean cleaning. I want to reorganize the way we have structured our project because it's a bit messy right now, and I would like to do a better job. Let's see. Research, best practice, I guess. Actually, I have an example project I can take a look at for this. What was the name of the project? The one with the fish. That was a very good, I think it's a good example for a good way to organize folders, organize scripts, organize scenes, and all the fun stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's about it. After that, well, do the thing. But then we do the change. If we have time, and I do suspect we will have time, I don't expect to spend hours on this. Maybe half an hour, I'm hoping. I'm hoping this won't be much more than that. Let's see. Where is our Godot? Now the fish project, there it is, fish game. Now this is a multiplayer game we looked at before, earlier on when we were developing our PTAO game and learning about multiplayer implementation and all the fun stuff. Reduce the volume a little bit. Let's see. The way they organize this is a bit different than what I'm normally used to. We have actors, add-ons, assets. What are assets? Would that be resources? Or what I would associate with resources? Auto-load, interesting. Okay. Interesting. Well, auto-load is not fine. It's a good name for this. Components. What's a component? Hitbox, input buffer. Components? I'm a bit unsure what they define as components in this case. I have no clue. Let's see. We have our main. What's a main? What is main? Music, screen, UI layer, screens. Does this mean it's the main menu? Main menu? I mean, that's what I would think with this, right? Music, screen, yeah. Isn't it? I don't know. I'm not saying this is a perfect project or that it's organized perfectly. It's just a good. It can give me some insight I wouldn't normally have. Maps. Interesting. Nakama. Barnacle, seaweed. Okay, objects. Pickups. Okay. Apparently the scripts folder is completely empty. But actors, players, explode effect player. Let's see if we can look at other examples as well. Godot. Do I have other projects I can use? You know, maybe I can look at this one. Autoload entities GUI. That's not a bad way to organize this. Shared. I guess these would be resources that they would share across entities and GUI and whatnot. Systems. Power, work. Okay, so this is more like classes, kind of interesting. Theme, shared, GUI, crafting, inventory. Yeah, there seems to be a trend to use autoload folder for this. And I, in my last project, which was the Snake Kata, which I did yesterday 2 times, I named the folder globals. And I think autoload is a better name for that. It seems to be more commonly used at least. So why not follow the trend? Let's see. Godot engine docs. I think there is some information about structure there, isn't there? Let's search for folder. What will I find? Project organization. Now this sounds interesting. Introduction. Since Godot has no restrictions on project structure or file system usage, organizing files when learning the engine can seem challenging. This tutorial suggests a workflow which should be a good starting point. We'll also cover using version control with Godot. Yes. Well, that sounds fine and all. Yeah, Godot is a scene-based in nature. So this is an example. We can use one single folder for basic assets, write images and whatnot. What's this? Day? Is this the visual thing? Nah. What is that? Dia. Style guide. For consistency across projects, we recommend the following guidelines. Use snake case for folder and file names. File names. That also includes scene names, doesn't it? Scenes. I mean, that's what I would interpret it, and I have not been using that. And even the project we looked at just now, they are not using that. They're not following the convention if that is the case. This is not a convention. The same for this. Those should be small letter M's because they're files. Same with these, and same with GD. I don't know. Now, Godot may be partially to blame for this, because when we create a script, if I were to let me create a new scene and just add something random, and then attach a script on this Node2D, the auto-suggested name for this GD file is not correct. It should be small 2D, like something like this, or maybe even this. But either way, that may contribute to why everyone, no, not everyone, many people don't follow the convention they themselves want you to follow, or rather encourage you to follow. There's no one's gonna force you to follow any convention, but it's good to do that. Let's see. So snake case for folder and file names, yeah. The site type case sensitivity issues that can crop up after exporting a project on Windows. This sidesteps case sensitivity issues that can crop up after exporting a project on Windows. Okay. C# script is an exception to this rules, as the convention is to name them after a class name. You know, I would be interested in looking at some C# coding in Godot. I'm curious. I've not done that, and I may use that for a kata at some point, for a practice session. You know, maybe after I've done Snake a few more times and I'm really good at it, I'll try doing it in C# and see how that turns out. I would like to learn how to make editor plugins. I would like to make a plugin for Biome Generation, so I can tweak the biomes, whatnot, in the editor without having to run this and load everything. That could be interesting to do. Let me write that down so I can. So I won't forget it completely. Let's see. Ideas. Editor plugin. Biome? Should be a procedure generation. I don't know, it's kind of both. Procedural generation preview window, something like that. I don't know. It's just an idea at this point. One of many ideas that comes and goes. So I'm just writing it down so I can now forget about it and not feel guilty about forgetting about it, because I've written it down, so someday I'll come back to this and read this. Yeah, ledge grab, it could be interesting in 2D. Interesting challenge. Let's see. Where were I? Now this is the C sharp basically. That's not what I want to look at. Here it is. Style guide. Importing. No, ignoring specific folders. Prevent Godot from importing files containing a specific folder. In a specific folder, create an empty file. Ooh. Ah, you know what? That's a good thing to know. In our snake project, in our meta folder, we have some imports I don't want. So if I were to add that in here, then that would prevent Godot from creating these import files automatically, and completely ignore this folder. And that this is a good to know. So during the next cat, I'll hopefully remember this. Let me write a memo for myself. To do add gd ignore to the meta folder. There we go. Let's see, where were we? That's fine, we're not going to use it. Case sensitivity. Is we're going to use snake case naming for all files. Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. Okay. This docs, models, characters, levels. I guess there's not really one answer because every game is different. You have different components, you have a different type of laying it out. Here we have systems. Now in our game we may not have that, I don't know. We have a shared folder, GUI, we have crafting inventory as a sub of this. Now does this include the functionality of inventory? Is this a part of GUI? I mean, after all, we should have a single source of truth when working with inventories, otherwise you're gonna have a nightmare having to maintain them all. Because you have a lot of components that want to interact with inventory, and if they have each their own way to get in there, then or manipulate the inventory from to the database, where it's going to be a nightmare. So it's a good idea to have a single inventory gateway, or whatever you want to call it, that everyone has to access that want to interact with the inventory. Let's see. Okay, let's open PTAO, take a look. PTAO server and client. This is not the right one. Where's the right one? This one? No, that's not the one. PTAO client, there it is. That's 1 out of 2. And the server is somewhere there. I did open the client, right? The same client is what I mean. Because I had several instances of PTAO where I tested something and messed around with it. Interesting. At least I'm following the convention here. That's good. Yeah. What about yeah, no. Oh, that's an add-on. That's why it's not following the convention, because I didn't write it. But I probably use some scenes. Oh, I did use the right convention. Interesting. I don't even know where to start anymore, because we have done so much here and there on both the server and the client. I'm almost considering to create a single project where I can add the server and the client code in one repository. By doing that, I wouldn't have to stick to 2 separate projects on GitHub. I'm gonna have a one project with a server and a client module, I guess. I think that could work, I don't know. But I would like to get this to work before I do the changes and improvements of the folder structure, now that I think about it. because we're gonna risk breaking a lot. If I don't know it works before I start doing the changes, I won't know if I break anything after making the changes. Ah, crap. Yeah, that's gonna change this a bit. We're gonna have to change our plan today. So we will first, before all of this, have to make the server and client work. And that includes moving the procedural generation code from the server to the client. Let me think. Util value. Did I use this? Am I using this? Can I check if I use this? Am I not using this? Find value. It's your whole word match case. I don't think I'm using this, so I'm going to remove that. Worst case, I use it. But if that's the case, Let me check if I made any changes. I'm curious if I oh yeah, I have to fix this as well. The folders are all wrong. They should end with a dash. And I don't think they are. Can you open... There it is. No. Logs you can ignore. Modified. Modified, really? Ocean grassland. Okay, we have made a few changes. Interesting. Yeah, the log is the log fully used? Yeah, it is used by a few others, but we haven't done that the right way everywhere. What is this? Cheaters and loggers. Cheaters, logger. Cheaters and logger. Okay. How about that? Cheaters. There it is. Because this doesn't end with one of those, we need to add that. And that's that. What else? What's the loggers? Yes. Who is missing a dash? There they are. Game state and the DB. So now we can hopefully clean it up. Remove this. Let's see. Let's find our procedural generation that we worked on. Let's take a look and see what we had here. That the procedural generation is coupled with the biome generation. No, the chunk generation is coupled with the biome generation, is what I meant to say. Is the API running? It's not. Now this is the backend API that serves our database, takes care of our data and whatnot. Wow, that's pretty green there. Did we fix the issue with the graphics? This is fine. This is acceptable. It's not optimal, but it's fine. I'm not gonna be. I'm gonna try not to be too picky about that. Ah, here we go. Ah, yeah, I forgot this. We were working on the animation, and the last issue we had was that it goes over our land sometimes, and that's not very desirable, is it? It is cool though. It would be really cool if we could just make sure the edges doesn't have those. Now this is because these are water tiles. They are on the water tile right there. But this is the border of the water tile. And in order to solve this completely, I'll have to redo the algorithm for placing auto tiling. We will have to move away from the built-in functionality of auto tiling, which is lacking right now, unfortunately, and make our own code. probably be based on marching square algorithm, unless I can find a different algorithm that would be even better for our use. Maybe. Besides the animation issue with the water, this seems to be fine. I think I can move this over now to the player, so the player will generate the same world when the player loads with the seed we have configured. Let's see what to begin with. Chunk loader. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Hold on, something is not right. Yeah, something is not right. Is it? Hold on. What are we loading right now? Let me change the chunk distances too. Okay, now it's way bigger. Okay, it is working. Yeah, no, it's working fine. You can see that. Yeah, good. Cool. I wonder if I can use... This does not have any of the ocean animation. So I'm going to remove the animation for now and wait with that until sometime later. Let's see, let me clean up all this. Let's see what happens here. We start, we run, we start. We get the player position, which is now our camera position on the server side while we're testing this out, figuring out what we want to see in our world. We then load the chunks, which will load based on this variable. If the chunk distance is 1, we're gonna have a 3x3 chunk grid with the player in the middle. If we have 2, it's gonna be a 5x5 grid with the player in the middle, and so on and so on. Just change that back to 1. So what I have to do is I have to move this code to the player side, to the client side rather. But we're not using this in the server side yet either. Right now we created a new chunk loader script that will replace the one we have used. I think this is the one. Yeah, this is the old one. Does it still work? I don't know. Maybe it's loading out of data now? Let's wait and see. See what happens. Well, let's see what's going on in the code here. Chunk size 32 periods. Yeah, we're replacing all of this. This is the old code. The old code I wrote. Oh my god. Why is it taking so long though? Where's the place I set the size for this? Oh, here it is. Well, that's not much much to go by. Really? Okay, let's turn it off. I think I removed the images, the pictures we had there. I think that's what's causing it. Possibly. Okay, stop. Close. Yeah, I'm really thinking of cleaning up the project by moving it step by step again. This is not in use. Delete that one. Tile set scene. Yeah, this is not in use as well. This is the first iteration of this. Holy crap. Let's see. How is this set up right now? Okay, we need to have a biome generator. That's what we have somewhere. And what's the job of the biome generator? It is to determine and set tiles based on biomes, and that comes from a noise value or a seed value. We have a chunk loader. The job of the chunk loader is simply to organize data within chunks, and that includes the biome. So a chunk loader uses a biome generator. The biome generator does not use the chunk loader. It shouldn't, at least. This uses the biome in order to get the pieces of the puzzle inside each square. And it creates multiple of these, and then at the end of it all, it auto loads all the tiles so they are connecting to each other, so they look good at the end of all the chunk generation. That may not be very efficient, to be honest, and it isn't. It would be way better if we can manually do that, I think. Now, I can't remember. There's a possibility I remember this wrong, the way this works. There's a possibility that the biome generator updates the tiles, neighboring tiles, so it looks smooth when it's placed within each square, but +1 on the edges. So every time you place one chunk, you're also going to update the tiles in that chunk +1, so the neighboring tiles also get connected, and that way we wouldn't need to update neighboring tiles on the entire map at the end of everything. Excuse me. Let's see. This is the old chunk. Yeah, this is the old chunk. This is the new chunk. Okay, how will I replace this now? Let's take a look. Let's go all the way to the start to see how this code works. We have our server scene. This is our main scene of the server. So when we start, we're initiating the server, we loading the world, and we start the server. So what happens in loading world? We instantiate the world TSCN instance, and then we add it as a child of the server. So the server has the world. Starting server, what happens here? Here we set up the connection so we can listen for the peers and whatnot. We set up the signals and we log that everything has gone well and we have started the server. We have the signals ready and available for us, so when a peer connects, we'll get a message about that, and we're gonna inform the peer to identify themselves by asking for authentication. And then the client will do something and send us back a message. And that message will be received right here. We expect the client to respond with authentication, which currently is just a username string, which is something we're going to move away from. We don't want to do it that way. We get the peer ID of whatever or whomever sent us the message right now. We log it. We get the username from the database. We get a copy of existing players. We get the joining player node from the peer ID and the joining player DTO by adding it to the scene. We add it to the game state. We send a message to the joining player, informing it about all the other players that are already in the server. Yeah, there's a lot of things we have to improve and change. I keep bringing up Notepad. The Notepad notes. We want to change the way our code works right now, our networking code. We may have to go back to the networking part. Because right now, imagine we have a server of 100 people, just to be generous. And the 100 people are all over the world, or rather all over the server somewhere. And probably 95 of the 100 people are far out of our range, so you wouldn't load it. Why would you load them in at all? So what we need is we need to first load in the new player on self. Actually, load self in game somehow. Then we need to load chunks in game. Now the order is not so specific for the play. This is just for our code. It's gonna happen at the same time pretty much. And this may be during load bar, whatever. We may have a loading screen while all this happens. That's not the point. The point is these are the steps we have to do. These can change. These can be 2 and 1. It doesn't matter. What matters is this has to happen. Those two has to happen before it comes what comes next. And when we have the chunks now, we know what we have to work with. What data do we have in a chunk? Well, we can have players in the chunk. When a player enters a chunk, we can store that in the chunk data. So when the new player joins the game, the new player can just reference to the chunks, ask the chunks themselves, hey, do we have any players I need to load? If yes, well, send the player data. Load player info from chunk. But not just player info, we need other info from chunks as well. We need to load the trees, the environment. So load environment info from chunk. What else do we have? What else can we get from the chunk that we don't? Because I don't want to just get every player in the entire server. That doesn't make much sense, unless it's a very small game, a 2D platformer game perhaps. Not for our purpose. So we will have to take a few steps back. Because the more we work on this, the more we learn doing this project. And if we don't handle this problem right now with chunks and all the fun stuff earlier on, we're gonna have a lot of problems later on. And we may have to redo this later on, rather than now. Hello, Rodox. Welcome. So when we load ourselves in the game, we load the chunks in the game, and when we have the chunks, we can then get the info of the players in the chunks, if any. We can then load the environment info from the chunks. That would be trees, that would be stones, that would be whatever, and draw it in our world for the player locally. And I think that's it. I think that's all we need to do. But what this means is we really need to work on the chunk scripts, the chunk coding, and that's a very important part of our game if you want this to work. So what does that mean? Well, we may have to redo a bit. We may have to plan a little bit more before we start coding right now. Let's see. What can we use to draw IO? What's that the name? Ah, here it is. Can I use GitHub? Am I signed in? Ooh, okay. Let's see. How do we want to plan this? I'm not great at this. I'm not great at planning like this. I know I need to visualize it a little better than what we're doing now, because now I've been kind of spitballing it while we go, taking one step at a time. But there has to be more than this. Maybe a sequence diagram. No. I think I want a relationship diagram, possibly. Let's take a look at this and see what it draws for me. Sure, go ahead. No. Grant. I don't need that. I just need my 4 users. Fine, it's fine. Oh, jeez. What's my password? I have no idea. Now I do. Right, this is a very short password. Select folder. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Are you telling me I have to use an existing folder? Ooh. I don't know. I guess I can use the PTAO project, but that's a part of. Can I? Ah, I can make some new. That's good. Okay. I have no idea. Let's go the diagrams. I don't know. Not found. Ah, well, that's just great. How about no? How about no? How about no? Change storage. Yes, let's try maybe OneDrive. Can I use that? Can I use that here? Ooh, I can. Excellent. Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, you take over everything. No problem. Yeah, I will allow it. Create a new diagram, please. Entity relationship diagram. I think that's what I want. No, I want to pick a folder. Are you serious? God damn it. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, can you? I am starting to dislike this. Yes, sure, use root. I don't care anymore. If it works, there we go. Okay, so what do we have? This is the example. It's in the entity relationship diagram. This is for database though. That's not what I need. Let's make a new one. Import from. Has to be. Can I new? Let's see. Let's see. Class diagram, flow chart, org chart. I don't know. Diagram for planning code relationship, maybe? What would that be? Ten types of chart diagrams for better project management. No. Absolutely not. No. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I should take a course for this. Let's just use a blank. Yes, use root. Let's see. Okay, we have a procedural. We have a chunk loader. Or rather, this is the chunk script. This is the chunk code. This is a category. I don't know what this is yet. What do we have? We have procedural generation. We have chunk. We have a chunk loader. What does a chunk loader have? It has the data, tells us how many chunks we want to load. It has the tile maps we're gonna draw the chunks on. But here's the issue I'm having right now. We're pretty much merging chunk loading and biome drawing in one and same thing. I would like to keep them separate if I can. I would like to plan for it so we can keep it separate. And couple them together and make them maintainable, I guess. You have a chunk dictionary, and that's part of the chunk. We have active chunk position. I don't know what that was used for again. We have previous chunk. And then we have the player info. And the player info is used to determine what chunks to load to begin with. So this is important. This is part of the chunk loading as well. Now this, I don't think will be part of the chunk. So when we start, we get the chunk cell position. Now we are working with cells because we are using a tile map to load the chunks in. So I guess tile map will be part of the chunks. So does that mean the chunk loader will own the maps themselves? So when a biome wants to draw something, it has to ask ask for permission for the chunk loader to draw something. So in a way, the chunk loader will be like a service that tells the biomes to do things. Hey, biome, draw the thing. Hey, environment loader or whatever, draw the trees and stones. You know, load the items on the ground, whatever. Maybe. But maybe we should have one step above that, because I don't really want that. If I could get my choice, Biome Generator or something. What else? Environment loader? I don't know what the hell to name this. I would want a sort of gateway or a superclass or a service that maintains these three. So when the chunk loader wants to load, we start a service. The service is basically the recipe for all of this to work. That will be okay. Get the player position first and foremost. Get the player position. That's done here. Then you tell it to load the chunks. Hello AJ, welcome. I'm good. I'm working hard on this project. That's what we're gonna probably keep doing for many months. Let's see. Get the player position. Load the chunks. So this should probably be on the servers layer. We should tell the chunk loader to load the chunks on this position. The chunk shouldn't need to have a player and then do that job. We should just tell it to load the chunks there. And if that's the case, we wouldn't need the camera at all, would we? Let's see. Yeah, we can take the camera out of this. Absolutely. Yeah, why not? Let's do that. I'm going to recreate the PTAO server and client by doing this one step at a time and doing this a bit cleaner. I think. Why not? Let's try that. Let's create a new project. I think very few coders are mathematical genius. I don't think that's the case. Let's create the server and client project again. Better. Luckily we have all the time in the world, so there's no problem. And we don't have that much. The vast majority of the time we have used so far is to learn and to think and figure things out. But since we now have done that, moving it over to a new project again wouldn't be that much of an issue. And that way we can reorganize the folders appropriately to begin with. YouTube? Yeah, YouTube projects, PTAO. So the server and client, these two are going to be replaced. We're gonna create an even better PTAO project, PTAO, whatever. Inside PTAO, we're gonna have a server, and we're gonna have a client. What we're gonna start with is the server. You don't need to be good at math, no. You can be okay at math. You need to know math. That's for sure. But don't worry about that. I wouldn't worry about that. What the hell? Does this work? Ah, crap. Let's see. Projects. We have PTAO. PTAO server. That's the one. Oh, jeez. Oh, I'm trying. Not import. What am I doing? What am I doing? New project. There it is. F. YouTube. Projects. PTAO server. So this is the folder we're gonna make this in. Create an edit. Now this gives us an opportunity. There we go. Okay. Let's do some magic. Let's make sure this is correct now. Let's see. Server, yes, it's good. Let's open this. It does seem like a lot of work. I may use the entire day on this, I suspect. Yeah, readme is fine. You know what? This is outdated now. Another reason to avoid document anything until it's done. This is the PTAO server module or whatever. Server. That's fine. That's all we need. What else? That's it for that. Let's organize this. Okay, I want a metadata folder. That would be documentation. That would be anything that's not related to the game itself. We want resources. We want autoload. Yeah, autoload. We want scenes maybe, but that should be a part of data. You know what? Let's add a data folder. We move autoload and yeah, let's move autoload in the data. A resource will be general to the project. It can be common shared resources, pretty much. Data, autoload, yeah, that's fine. Let's see. No, it does not require a lot of math. Let's see, data, that's empty. Let me remove that folder. We have data backup. Let's forget that one. We have a documentation folder, which is no longer relevant because we have made so many changes. It doesn't look like this anymore. But I did like the art style. I could definitely use this art style for a maybe game jam or a smaller game or something like that. So we can forget about that. Now the documentation I could put in the meta folder. So in the meta folder I can add the documentation folder. We have a logs folder. Sure, let's keep that. We'll stash all our logs in here. But that's outside of the data folder. What else do we have? We have scenes. That's going to be part of the inside data. Now what are scenes? What are scenes? I mean, scenes is everything, really. So maybe we want to change this. Maybe we want to change this to actors, for example, like the enemies, the players, or something that has a certain behavior. That can be an NPC, that's an actor. I think, isn't it? Well, let me make sure. Game development folder structure. Let's see if we can find something here. Animation naming, no. Folder structure listed for games, maybe? Let's see. Naming files. Yeah, file name doesn't matter as long as you don't organize them well. Assets are sorted by categories, GUI, units, weapons, etc. Okay. I'm just browsing through this to see if I can find something, some nuggets. Oh my god. So this is how you don't organize it. Don't organize it by individual artists. Holy shit. Yeah, I agree. That's moronic. Assets are sorted by categories, GUI, units, weapons. Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. And in those categories broken down into their locations in the game, in menu, options, menu, etc. keep folders from containing 20%. Yeah, I definitely want to avoid that. Each major asset has a final asset folder. Interesting. Okay. What else do we have? What's your folder structure? Maybe they have some info here. This is Reddit. I mean, I cannot imagine a bigger source of information. Aha. Yes, pretty much. 7 comments. Back in my CD dev days, our producer, blah, 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 been using her system ever since, and that is use my enterprise basic rules to keep. The basic rule is to have a key folder per asset category. Yes, what would that be? 3D animation? Yes. Yeah, let me write that down. Animation can be a folder, because we're gonna store animation at some point with the player and whatnot. Here's the thing, I don't want animation in a folder. An animation belongs to something. You don't have animation for everything. Usually. At least not in our folder, so that won't count. Documents. Fonts, yeah. Sound, video. What is this? Editor, plugins, audio, materials, models, scenes, scripts. Maybe I should use scenes. No, I like scenes. It is like the topmost category, right? Let's see. Didn't I open the other project? Was it this one? GUI, crafting, entities. That's the one I was looking at. Entities. No, not entities. I was thinking about assets. Was that the other project that had assets? The fish game? There it is. So the fish game had an interesting way to organize this. You had actors, you had add-ons and assets. And assets has backgrounds, it has fonts. This will be the resources folder. Let's see. This is the old one, where's the new one? There it is. So resources, that's where we can put these kind of things. Such as fonts, we're gonna add fonts in here. Music, sounds, yeah, that's fine. This is all good. Sprites, tile sets. Now, I don't know if this will be appropriate. Maybe it would. No, tile sets is fine. Those are resources. But those resources belong to the game, though. So I guess the resources should be in the data folder, shouldn't it? That's fine. It's fine. Sounds. Yeah, tile sets, I definitely want a folder for that. And that includes tile set images as well as the scene you save. Sprites. Sprites. What's sprites in their eyes? Sprite seems to be animation. We have UI, images. Ah, cool. And you have a theme dress. I should create the theme. I haven't created a theme before. Components though, what's a component? Component is something you add. It's a component of something, but it doesn't tell us what it is a component of because of the way this is laid out. So that could be better. I mean, I assume the hitbox is for the player, right? I mean, what else? But you also have sound, the input buffer, so that makes it confusing. Objects, you have pickups, yeah. We don't have that, I think. Okay, let's move on. Scenes, common, scene 1. That's not a bad idea, I like that idea. Have scenes in common folder. Yeah, it seems no one has a perfect. I mean, there's no perfect folder structure. It's just to give us an idea of how to organize it and how not to organize it. I have done the not to organize it way before, and that was not a good idea. And that's to put everything in separate. Don't put all scripts in a script folder. Don't put all scenes in a scenes folder. Don't do that. Things that belong together should be together. And I guess that's what I would go with if someone were to ask me how to organize your code. That's it. Nothing more. Things that goes together should be together. Yeah. Okay, let's copy the rest of the code over there. See what we can make from all of this. Singleton. Now this will be our autoloading now. Now we have a database. We have a lot of subfolders here. Let's open the project. Okay, where's our main project? Let's close everything. Yeah, where's our main scene? Ah, there it is. Scenes server. Let's create our server scene. And this is just going to be a node. The control node. The type should be a regular node. Yeah, let's create the server and put it in data, scenes, and this is the main scene of the entire thing. And that makes me wonder if I should name this main, so it's blatantly clear to anyone that runs this will know that this is the entry point. So even though we name this node server, the file name I want to name main. Maybe I should just name this scene 3 main as well. I mean, this is the server project, so it's self-explanatory that it's a server. Yeah, why not? That's fine. So on the root of scenes is the main. That's the entry point. That's fine. That's gonna be our main. Now our server has some scripts. Let's see if we can't sneak them over to our own code. Give me 1 minute, please. Be right back. Okay. Let's see. I'd like to visualize our code a bit. That would be nice if I could do that. It would be cool if we could have a plugin that could visualize the relationships between the scenes and nodes and classes and whatnot. Okay, let's look at the server for now. Let me full screen this. We have a logger. I have not added the logger here. Maybe I should wait to the logger. I don't need loggers this early anyway, do I? No, I don't. But we do need a network, so let's create a network. Now I'm wondering, let's see what we do with the network. What do we do? Reload the world. Let's remove the logging. Well, for a little bit. Reloading the world scene. The first thing we do when we start the server is to load the world scene. Is that a good thing? I don't know yet. What do we really want to do? We want to make sure our server is available for others. But before we can be available for others, we have to set up. We have to load the data. So we need a data scenes world folder. So we have data scenes, and we're gonna make a new folder. It's gonna be world. Let's find our own. Take a look to see what we have here. And this is just another node with chunk, players, entities, and just basically folders as nodes, which we are going to be place data in here, popular data in here as part of these. So players will go under the players node, entities will be under players, entities nodes, and so on. Let's create a new scene. Let's create the other node. World, save this in the world. Make sure to use the convention by using lower case letters, snake case. And the world needs a player node, not a player node, the node named player. It's players. Do we need entities? I don't think we're using entities just yet. So I'm gonna wait with that. Same with harvestable and environmental. Now the chunk is what's going to do the magic for us. That's the chunk loading, which includes biome loading and item loading and all the fun stuff. So in a way, the world is the chunk loader. Except, you know what? The world will be the servers in our case. It should orchestrate. It should tell. It should have the player info. The world should have it. And then the world should send the chunk loader information. Let's see. Let's see what the world script does. Okay. Entity API. It's not used. Remove. That's good. Next one, we have a client. What is a client? A client is not in use either, apparently. Interesting. And we remove that. What do we have? We're loading entities. So when we load the world, we're loading entities. We are not going to do that yet, so we can skip that for now. We are going to first load the biome chunks that contains the biomes and all the info. Which means the world is no longer going to be doing this. It will be the chunks themselves that will be, not the chunks. It's the world will all orchestrate based on the chunks. So we need certain information across all of these. What information would that be? I mean, if you think about it, a chunk load is just blocks like this. Let's see if I can't draw. I mean, the chunk loader creates basically this. It maintains coordinates, boundaries of our world for each player. So for each player, it has to create one of these for each single player. So each player have their own world boxes, chunks, and they can share chunks. There's nothing wrong with that. But still, they still keep track of each player's data and what they are allowed to see. That's what the server does. So when this happens, when we have decided the borders of the world, we have created chunk objects. And a chunk object has an ID. It has a size, it has a position and a position end, which means a position top left, position end is the bottom right. So we have the area. Now it currently has biomes as well. I don't want that. And it has a chunk loader, a reference to the parent. to the one that creates them to begin with. So how do we want to orchestrate this? I mean, that's it really. This shouldn't be a part of the chunk. This drawing part should be part of the biomes. So what is the biome? The biome would need this. The biome would need the position and position end for each chunk. So it would need the chunk. It would need the chunk it's going to load. So if I wanted to make it easy, I guess it would look something like this. The way of communication. The service will initiate and start up the chunk loader that will do its thing for each player. It's gonna send the player info to the chunk loader, whatever that is. Whatever that is, that's just the position probably, but there may be more. And then this is going to do this thing. It's gonna create the chunks. Or rather, it calculates chunk. It doesn't actually create anything. It just... What can I say? Visualizes it? No. No. How can I put this into words? It prepares boundaries. It prepares chunks. And chunks are just areas. I don't know. Prepare chunk areas. Area information. I mean, that's what it does, really. It's just information. And the information is just these 4 things. That's what a chunk is. It's just a beginning and end. It's just an area. A chunk area. Maybe that should be the name of this. Yeah, that's probably what we're gonna name this, actually. Create non-chunk areas for player. Can I? There we go. Yeah. So what happens now after we created that? That means the servers have now access to the chunk areas to send to the player with alongside with other data. Let's see. This is the world service. So this is going to send the information back. Actually, no, it shouldn't go that way. It should go the other way. It should go back the way it came from. This should just return a list of chunks. Ooh, yeah, that could be a good way to organize this, right? Returns list of chunks belonging to player. Yes, that's a good way to do this. That way we can keep the couplings a bit more separate. What it means is, if I make changes to the way we load chunks, it's not going to affect anything else. And that's a good thing. That means I can make changes to the chunk loader to make, maybe I'll change the algorithm for how we calculate this or whatever, without affecting anything else. As long as we have a contract, we create a sort of interface or maybe a DTO or something. I don't know what to name this, but we need to create a contract. What's a contract? Well, this is a contract. For example, this can be contract can be of an object containing this data, a list of objects containing that data. In Java, that would be an interface. An interface is just a contract. Now, it means that we need to, yeah. I don't know how to elaborate it more further. So we have ID, we have size. Now, do we need size? I don't know. perhaps what we don't need, perhaps we don't need the data. Perhaps we don't need the data. What we really need is just functions from each and every biome. So from each of these chunks, this would be a list of chunks. Maybe the list of chunks themselves should be an object. And the reasoning for that is because what do we really want to do with each of these chunks? We want to ask them questions, right? We want to ask each chunk, hey, do you have a player? Or, hey, you have trees? Or, you know, we want to ask them questions later on. Or rather, we want to use them to ask the environmental loader, for example, questions. I want to use this chunk to ask the environmental loader if there is any environments in this chunk, right? So how do we do that? My notepad is gone. I need my notepad. Okay. So what we don't really need this. This is not what we need. We need the position. I mean, the position is the important part, but not just the position themselves. I don't care about the positions. What I care about is do we have a player here? That's what I care about, right? Who do we ask? Who would we ask that question? Do we have a player in here? It would be something that would have to take in a chunk. Something, the parameter or the method that would answer that question would takes in a chunk or a list of chunks or something like that. Perhaps the chunk object containing all the chunks. But maybe it wouldn't be just do we have a player. Maybe it would be give me any players that are in our chunks that are in here. And that here would be the chunks themselves. And that would return a list of players. Now what would that be? I'm not sure what would be. Maybe we would create something else. That would be a player generate player maintainer, player loader. Yeah, why not? We have a lot of loaders. I guess loader can be a thing. Player loader. We would ask the player loader, hey, player loader, do we have any players in here? In these boxes? And that would be these boxes, right? And then the player loader will do his thing. You know, check with the game state and iterate. Okay, this is the boxes the player loader got. Okay, do you have any players here? No. Aha, one player. Okay, add to list. Another player. Add to list. Okay, we have two players. Okay, then the player loaders return the player list to the servers. This is good. But how do I draw this up though? Maybe what we need is a sequence diagram, not this kind of diagram. Let me try to create a new thing. Sequence. This one. Diagram name. World loading. Yes. Use the root. Okay, this is going to be the world. How did we do this? How did we do this logic anyway? Let me take a look. Populate world dictionary, build noise, set up chunk load timer. Okay. This is the wrong class. There it is. Excuse me. My god. Apparently our world is not doing anything. It's just loading the entities. And that's not what we're doing or caring about right now. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be the world that does this. So in effect the world does nothing. This world script does nothing. But the world contains a chunk node that does something. This is the part that's interesting that we want to look at. Populate World Dictionary. What is that? Okay, it just populates the seeds. And the seeds belongs to the biomes, not the chunk loading. The chunk loading couldn't care less about the seeds, but yet, here it is. We build a noise, and that's also for the seeds, it's not the chunk. And then we have a chunk load timer. Now that is for the chunks. So that's the only thing that belongs to the chunk in here, that I can see, after the box. Ah, here it is. Okay, so we load chunk for player. Each tick we load chunks for player. How do we do that? We get a copy of list players, and for each player, in the nodes, we're gonna load the chunks. How do we do that? Set a player with dictionaries. If the player node does not have a tree dictionary, we're creating it. So we're just setting up the player node's dictionary. The player node has dictionary, or it has dictionary variable in it, and in that dictionary it contains other dictionaries, such as tree dictionary, rock dictionary, stick, and pebble. And this dictionary just contains the chunk data. This is just the chunk data, really, that we chose to store in the player node. And what this does is just make sure we set it up before we attempt to set the values. So what I'm doing now, I'm getting the references to these dictionaries that belongs to the dictionary in the player node, if that makes any sense. We store the previous chunk, we store the previous chunk start, previous chunk end, and we start doing chunk work now. This is the chunk work, which we are replacing with a new and better improved version. What I'm really looking at now is where we send the player the data, because I don't think we do that here. Generate chunk. Yeah. What we did here is something we left undone. Right now on the server side, we're loading these instances of the rock, and that will be this scene. This is the rock instance. There is no graphics, it's just a node. We need to create the nodes to reflect the client side. So on each and every client that plays on our server, the server has a node for that. For everything the client has and the server wants to have control over, it will have a node that represent that item on the client side. And because we're gonna move towards an authoritative server, the server will keep control of everything. The client will have to ask the server for everything he wants to do. Apparently I'm storing the noise value on this for some reason. I think it was because we used the noise value to determine what rock sprite we're gonna add, because that will randomize a little bit. We're gonna move away from this. We're gonna make this better now. So let's go back to the chunk loading. Now this is the interesting part. And this is the old one. Let's see. I mean, yeah, all we're really doing is just making sure our own data is consistent with the play data. Okay, so the world just loads a chunk, which just loads the data of the world right now on locally. We don't load chunks for players. I'm a bit unsure why we do this though on the server side, because this should be done on the client side, not the server side. The game still has a copy of players, or that has references to all the players that are in the game. So in the beginning there will be an empty list, and this would never run. We wouldn't load any chunks because there are no players there. What we should do instead is we should do this different. We shouldn't do this. We should not load players like the way we're doing right now, because the players has to ask us to do anything. So it would make more sense for the player to ask us to load chunk when it believes it's in the area where it can load chunks. And that's when we would, you know, validate. Okay, is the player really here? Does it add up? You know, they look like, yeah, okay, sure, load chunk, and then the server would then send the chunk data to that player, which then loads the chunk. And that would happen on the client side only. The client side would just ask the server whenever it needs chunks. I don't want the server to do this. This is a bad choice, which I have done not too long ago. Okay. So what do we really want? Okay. World scene. World script. It's gonna use the chunk loader in order to create the chunks. Yeah. Oh my god, this is good. This is good stuff. Where's my duck? I don't have a duck, but I have a turtle I talk to. So when no one's here, I don't know if I've turned off the counter. I cannot see. But anyway, I have a turtle I talk to. It helps to talk a lot loud because then you get ideas. It helps to verbalize your thoughts because then you can catch stupid things you say that you're thinking. Yeah, so let's see. Let's go to a chunk loader rather. This is what we're gonna replace the code with. Recording. Oh yeah, my recording. Let's turn that off. Let's find the other code. Where is it? There it is. So the server is gonna load the world instance, and we're gonna add the world to the scene. And this is enough to begin with. We don't need to add any networking stuff yet in our server side. So on the world, we need to create a script on the world. And this is what's gonna do most of the job. It's gonna need a chunk loader. It's gonna need a player loader, whatever that is. It's gonna need a entities loader, or whatever that is, and so on. It's gonna control all the data. So the first thing is we want to ask for the chunks. Give us a chunk for the player. Now the problem right now is you don't have a player because it's the server. We don't have a player until a player joins, and that makes this a little bit more difficult to test until we create the client side, which means we have to create the client as well at the same time as we do this. And this can quickly become convoluted and difficult to understand for myself. This game, turn it off. Don't save. Don't save. How dare you? Asking me to save? I don't want to save the fish. New project. Godot engine. This is going to be the client. F. YouTube. Projects. PTAO, and client. Select. Client name. Client folder. OpenGL ES 3.0. Yes, why not? Let's put aside the server a little bit and open the client and take a look and see what you have to do. Now I want to add a folder structure similar to what we did on the server side. So let's do that right away. Okay, this is the server. We need a meta folder, and that meta folder is going to contain GD ignore. We talked about earlier today. I will add that to the server as well. What this does is it makes sure that we don't import anything in the in Godot from the meta folder. That can be documentation, it can be whatever. And we have a logs folder. Yes, we will have that. We're gonna have a data folder. Yes, we're gonna put everything in here. And we have a resources folder, and that will be usually shared resource. It can be music, it can be sounds, it can be file sets, whatever. Maybe, we'll see. I may change my mind on the tile set and put it under the world, because it belongs to the world, more likely than not. But I'll just reserve the folder anyway, so we have it there. And the resources folder will have fonts. It's gonna have some music, maybe, someday. I'll have to commission someone for that. Sounds. Let me not add tile sets. I don't think I'm gonna add that there. I'm 90% sure I won't. But sounds, music, and fonts, that's fine. No problem with that. Okay, data. Data. We need the auto load folder. We need scenes. SNES. I think that's enough to get started. Yeah. Let's see, what do we have on our client? Do we have a readme of sorts? We do. What's in this? Ah yes, the information about how to run this in the browser. That's a good thing to keep, why not? But that's gonna be a sub file. I have made title to be the PTAO client. Copy this over there. I'm gonna copy the get to ignore as well. I'm gonna do it on the server as well. So we have all that in the place. You know, no, it shouldn't be there. Actually, it's fine. It's fine. Now, one thing I would love to be able to do is to have a third-party folder where I have shared code, because there will be code both the client and server will have that will be identical. Not a lot of it, but it will be there, such as the Biome Generation that's shared. It's going to be done on the client side because I don't want to waste the server's resources on generating a world that will be constant no matter who you are, as long as you use the same seed. And as long as we have an authoritative server, it shouldn't be a problem, even if the client cheats and changes the seed to be something else. Because guess what? If the clients try to interact with a tree that doesn't really exist, the server is going to notice that. Add-ons, yeah, state machine. Okay, how does the client run? We have a main scene under scenes. Let me clean this up. We have so many stuff here. I wish it wouldn't just open new and new folders, because we usually end up with a lot of files at the end. Can you open this? There we go. Now the main scene for us is just a transition to the splash screen. From the splash screen, it transitions to the main menu. From the main menu, you do the info about logging, connected to the server and whatnot. Can I run this on the browser now? Oh, I can. Excellent. Very good. Okay, the server is not up, but it works. That's cool. That's very cool. What do I really want to do now? Do I really have to create a client before I get further ahead? I would like to create the chunk generation first. I guess I can use a camera for now on test server side. Can't I? But when you think about it, maybe. Oh. Let's create a chunk loader and see where it takes us. Now these will be pretty much classes, I think. So the question is, should I add it as part of the world or not? I guess it's fine. So the chunk loader folder is going to contain the chunk loader class. Can I empty? Thank you. So what do we want in the chunk loader class? This is going to be a class name named chunk loader. This is going to return a list of chunks. It's going to return an object that contains a list of chunks. What's that object going to be named? It needs a name. Chunk data. Chunk data. But chunk data can be. That sounds like something that belongs to a single chunk. Chunks. I guess chunk data is fine. Chunks data with an S. Yeah, return chunks data. That's the purpose of the chunk loader, is to load chunks data taking in a player position or position. Because the chunk data is also going to be the surrounding chunks with the player being in the middle. Let's see, how are we going to be doing this? Oh, this is the wrong one. Server chunk loader scene. There it is. There it is. Let's see. Now it's not gonna care about the tile map. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter. I think. Except it does. It does. It needs a tile map because it's gonna use the tile maps to determine the cell position. But the cell position is just like it turns. Let me try this. Let me run this one more time. I have a theory I can try out. Yes, it works. Good. I haven't broken it yet. I'll break it soon enough. But you just wait. Get cell position from camera, taking in the global position. So let's print and see what's really going on here. Because this change from a position coordinate to a cell position is changing it. There's some logic to this, and I'm thinking I don't need a tile map to do this. I'm hoping I just use the tile map world to map position. World to map returns a tile map grid based coordinate corresponding to the given load position. Yes. So it does need a tile map. So we can use a tile map to convert to a local position as well. I get that, but what I'm trying to... do I really need to create a tile map for myself? I mean, it's not the end of the world if I do that. Did my phone just ring? Oh, battery power 7%. I guess I should charge it. Give me 1 second. Go battery, all good. Yeah, it's fine. Excellent. Okay, let's get going. Tile map to world position. I could create a tile map myself, and I'm thinking that's what I will do from code, possibly. Or there is another option, but I don't know if I like it. There's definitely another option for this. I could create an export. You know, maybe I should just ask for a tile map. Why not? I mean, it does need one, and if I were to hold it in as part of the chunk loader, it will not always be right, because maybe we'll create a tile map with 8x8 cell size or whatever. Then this will be different. So we need a tile map. Yeah, I mean, it's no way around it, as far as I can tell. And here's another thing. People use underscore to indicate that it's a variable or function that you're not supposed to use outside the class, if I understand that correctly. And I just can't, for the life of me, remain consistent when I try to do that. Prepend a single underscore to virtual method function the user must override. Private functions and private variables. Yeah. I'm not good at that. I should probably learn to do that. This is a private function. Or supposed to be. It isn't really. It's just, you know, just a colorful way of doing that. So let's set the tile map to the tile map. Okay, now we have that solved. And it still doesn't belong to the chunk loader, and that's fine. It just takes in one in order to create the chunk loader to begin with. So now the world, when we want to use the chunk loader. Oh, yeah. Tile map somehow. And that will change the way we instantiate this. Now we need an onReady, I think. And we need a reference to this. So yeah, maybe not even there. Perhaps we'll just do it like so. Somewhere in here we're gonna create a tile map. Can I do it here? Is that allowed? Yeah, it's not allowed because it's not in the same line. This is supposed to infer a type on a variable, but because this doesn't happen while we set up the variable, it doesn't like it. So instead, I will have to do this. To do tile maps, I don't forget. Let's go back to the chunk loader. Okay, what job? What amazing job did it do before? And the job is amazing and important. There's no doubt about that. So we get the cell position from a normal position. So what function would this be? What are we trying to get from the chunk loader? We're trying to get the chunk data. So load. You know what? Get chunk data. Get chunk data, and that takes in a position, which is of a vector 2D. Vector 2, right? Yeah, vector 2. I don't know why I had said 2D. Vector 2D. I mean, it's two dimensions, but you know, whatever. Maybe it's something I read somewhere. Okay. And I guess this is the only function we need in the chunk loader. That's the only thing we need in the chunk loader. The world is gonna ask this when we start up all of this data. So somewhere along the lines, we're gonna ask for get chunk data, and we need the player position, whatever that is. But we don't have a player right now. We have a something I'm gonna use to test with, which is going to be a camera. This is a temporary temp camera 2D. Let's find the camera script and just paste it in here so we can move. Make it built in. Make it empty. There we go. Now you are right. Scroll up or scroll down does not exist. I'm gonna add those two in the project. So let's go to project settings. Let's find the input map and add those two things. I don't know why they didn't add that as a default somewhere. They probably should have. Let's create you scroll up. Wheel up. That's a better name. And let's create wheel down. So wheel up. Mouse button. It's gonna be wheel up. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? wheel down. Let's name this to wheel up and wheel down. There we go. Now we have a camera, and this camera has a position. So while testing this, I'm gonna get the player position. And this usually wouldn't happen in the ready function. It would happen when a player connects. When a player connects, we're gonna get the player information, including the position. That's gonna be running through the chunk loader, which is gonna get the player data, and then we use that chunk data to ask for any other players, all the data, whatever. We may, you know what? We may even reuse the chunk data class and add data to that. Keep adding it to that and use that as our little messenger for the player to receive. So the server gives the player all the information it needs to populate its own scene. So it knows where the trees are, it knows where the rocks are, it knows where the players are. Or at least where to initially load players. And which players to get updated about when they move and whatnot. And that's going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, when I move away from a peer-to-peer player communication with the movements. We'll see. And this is gonna receive a chunks data, which is gonna have its own type at some point. It's gonna be an object, it's gonna be a DTO, it's gonna be something we're gonna send to the player. Chunk data contains player, it contains, chunk data, that's perfect. Excuse me for picking my nose there, but it's so itchy, I don't know. Maybe talking vibrates my nose hairs, There it is, load chunks. Let's copy this thing and see what we get from this. We take in, this is gonna be replaced with not the chunk position, it's gonna be the player position. Let's see, when do we do this? Get chunk cell position, there it is. So this is the code that returns the cell position based on the camera position. What the hell? Oh, this is the chunk cell position. Okay, that's different than the cameras. What the hell? Isn't it? Yeah, it is. Now the chunk cell position is the chunk position for each chunk. Now that means a cell size of a camera is maybe 32 by 32 or something like that. The cell size of a chunk may be different, isn't it? You know what? Let me. I have to check this out because something. Camera global. I have to visualize this a bit better. And then we need the cell position, whatever that is. Let's see. What is it going to print? Oh my god, it's the same thing. Why are we converting the same thing to the same thing? Unless I did it wrong. No, it's the same thing. This value right there is the same as this. Let me try to move and see if it changes. Okay, it does change. Never mind. So let's see. So this is a cell size. Okay, what is it? What's the chunk size here? Chunk size is 32 by 32, right? So you're dividing the cell position, meaning this, by 32 again. That will give us minus 6.5. Yeah, we are converting this into a chunk. So we first convert the camera position to the nearest tile map cell, which is 32 by 32. We then, let's see, player position. That's somewhere in the world, who knows? Let's say this may turn into, for example, I don't know, it's completely wrong probably. Yeah, let's just do 1 and 5, for example. And this cell position is in turn converted to a chunk cell position. And the chunks are much bigger than the tile map cells. And I'm wondering if I can just do this directly. Why convert to the player to the cell and then the cell to the chunk? Can't I just do it directly to the chunk? If I can do that directly to the chunk, I wouldn't need the tile map at all, and that would be a good thing. So we have a camera cell position divided by chunk size. Then we get the cell chunk position x, chunk cell position x and y. I don't really want to mess around with that though, because it works. And these are the IDs for each chunk. It's a corner, top left corner for each chunk. That's what it really is. That's what that chunk cell position is. And it's huge, so it's a cell ID for each huge chunk. And then it returns that position. Let's keep it. Let's change this function name. This is horrible. Get chunk ID. That's what it really is. It's a chunk ID. Because we're not using it for anything else. It's used to identify what chunk it is. So why not name it as such? Get tile map from cell position. Yeah, no, we're gonna change that. Get chunk ID from the player position. So let's take in a position, which is a vector 2D. But now we have a descriptive name. Chunk ID equals get chunk ID from player position, player position. Strange. Ah. There we go. Let me make it a bit thinner. Let's remove this. Let's rename this to something else. You know why? Why? And tile map is the tile map. Now where is the tile map? This is the world. Oh shit! This is the world. This is the wrong place. This should be inside the chunk. It should be in here. Get chunk data. Yeah. So this is not going to be here at all. The player position is sent in directly into the chunk data. So get chunk data. Oh, my bad. So get chunk data. We first convert the position. I mean, you know what? It may be anything. It doesn't have to be a player. It can be a tree. And if I, for whatever reason, wanted to load all the chunks around the tree, then it could be a position. So why not? Let's just change that to be more open for change and reuse. Get chunk ID from position. Right, so what do? We're gonna use the tile map, world to map, using the position. I could also name it entity position if I really wanted to, but that's fine. Okay, now we have not a camera cell position, we just have a cell position. Tile map cell position rather. Actually, you know what? It's not just a position; it's a cell. No, it's a position, right? Where is it? What the hell? World to map, world to map. There it is. It returns. It takes in a world position. It returns a tile map grid base coordinate corresponding to the local position. Yeah, it's a coordinate. Yeah, why not? Tile map coordinate. That's a way better description, isn't it? Yeah. And we have that. What else? What are we using this for? We are creating a new empty vector20, which is the chunk cell position, which is going to change to chunk ID, I think, wouldn't it? Yeah, chunk ID. Let's rename all these. Oh my god. Yeah, it's a chunk ID. It's not the chunk position, but, unless you define the chunk position as the top left part of a chunk. It's the chunk ID. So let's change that to a tile map coordinate. And we also need to include the chunk size, X and Y. That would be this. Now, this is something I would usually put in a configuration file of sorts. We currently don't have any config files, but it's definitely a candidate for that later on. Because we may want to change that for whatever reason. But the chunk size is the number of tile map cells, really, is what it is. So if the tile map is smaller, then the chunk size will be smaller as well. So in a way, this would be the tile map cell size per chunk. But that would be a mouthful, wouldn't it? Per chunk. I don't know, I'll leave it there for now, and we'll come back to that if we can think of something better. Ah yes, chunk distance, of course. This may vary. And the reason I add this is because it gives us some context of how that value may look like, or how that value may be used. Chunks loaded is temporary variable for this. We append the chunk ID to the chunks loaded. Or is it? Hold on. Check the chunk. This is the chunk ID. This is the position. This is the chunk ID I'm sending in. So what am I? Oh yes, this is the middle chunk ID. Yes, this is the chunk ID from the position. That's correct. But center chunk ID is what it really is. It's the context of the use of this ID. It's the chunk ID, but it's the center chunk ID. It's for this function. And that will allow us to understand this even more. So what are we doing in load chunks? We're not returning anything, we're populating data somewhere. I think it's active chunk positions, possibly, or chunk dictionary. Let's remove that. Let's see what we can do. You know, let me reverse this. Yeah. Center. Chunk ID. It's used only those 2 times. Luckily, so I can just add it there. There you go. Chunk dictionary is not declared, and that's because we haven't copied that over yet. So what are we doing here? We are deleting right here. From our memory. So do we care about that? Because if we do it this way, it means that we may need to send in some data. We may need to send in the previous chunk as well. Chunks loaded. Chunk dictionary. Yeah, that's the one. Chunk dictionary is the one that it's stored on. But because we don't want to work with chunk dictionaries, we just want to work with chunk data, I guess, which contains dictionary. It would be good if you can just send in the chunk data there and then. But we have to maintain all this. The server will have to keep in memory every chunk that is loaded for each player. So I'm wondering, should that... No, the player should not own the chunks in the server. The chunks should own the players. So we do need a global chunk dictionary of sorts somewhere. So the question is where? A tough one. Let's see. Maybe this is fine. Maybe we can keep this in memory. I mean, that's the purpose of the chunk loader, is to load. But it should also do the trash work of throwing away chunks that are no longer used. And as long as we don't throw away... how do I do that? Yeah, no, it has to be... this is not gonna work. The way the code is right now, it would belong to each player. The player would own the chunks. Because we have more than one player, and what if there are more than one player in one area, and one player moves out? We should still remove the chunks for that player that are behind, but it should remain for the other player. We shouldn't affect the other player. And the way the code is now, it's questionable how it would behave. Let's think. I have not used parsec, no. Chunk ID. If we don't already have this chunk in a dictionary, we are creating this chunk. We're creating the object, the chunk. We add it to our own dictionary and we draw it. Now this we're going to remove. We're not going to be drawing any chunks in here. We're not going to have anything to do with the biomes, with the world generation. All this is going to do is maintain the boundaries of each, for each player. Or rather, yeah, boundaries, multiple boundaries per player. Well, if it works for you, then that's great. I don't know much about parsec, but there are other alternatives that can be used. For example, I think there is the Nakama one, which is a very paid for and just enterprise networking solution that the Fish game used, which supposedly makes things easier to set up networking and whatnot. But I don't personally feel that it's worth it in the networking part, because that's not so difficult compared to this kind of coding, for example. This is way more complicated than setting up networking, having to deal with chunk generation and controlling the player data and what areas it has access to and whatnot. At least from our own experience, which is, somewhat limited, but still. But whatever helps, why not? Let's see. How can we do this? How can we do this? Well, if we had a pool, if I could, you know what? I know how to solve this. We could have a dictionary of the chunks with a counter. So if there are two players that shares certain chunks, the count will be 2, for example. If there were 2 players sharing 2 chunks, or sharing whatever chunks that is. So chunk 1, 2, and 3, which would be shared across 2 players, would have a count of 2. So what we can do then is to decrease the count by 1, and if it's 0, then we delete it completely from the chunk loader. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just thinking ideas, you never know. Chunk maintainer, maybe? I don't know. Chunk retainer. So how is that going to work? Let's see. So for each player that we now load, this is going to be per player then, right? It's going to have its own position. It's going to be for each position, rather. And we don't really care. Oh crap! No, it's not gonna work, is it? It's not gonna work because when the player moves, how would we know? Or you know what? No, it would work because we're loading before we delete. So if 2 players were to enter the same place, we would already have incremented it by 1. So when the next time this runs, we increment it by another 1, and then we will decrement here. I think this will work. I need my paper. God damn it! Wait, give me 1 second. I'm just gonna sketch a little bit. Nothing important. It's just to visualize a little bit. Let's see. player loads chunk. Player joins. First player joins. We then load 9 chunks in total. There's no one to delete because there's no one else that has been yeah, because they all match. The chunk dictionary will contain the exact amount we have in the chunk loaded. So we're not going to delete anything here. So the first player would have a 3x3 area. Okay, let's pretend now the player stands still, it's not moving. Now a second player joins, we get a new position. Okay, let's spawn here. Then we will load the area. We're gonna populate the chunks loaded, which is completely empty. We're gonna append all the chunk IDs which are calculated, and that all are again. So we're gonna have overlap of calculated IDs, and that's fine. It's a very light calculation. There's nothing heavy about this at all. And then we do something. If we have not already loaded that dictionary, we are then creating it. However, if it is already loaded now, we're not going to do anything. What we want to do is we want to increment it by 1. So I guess it doesn't really matter whether or not it has loaded. We want to make sure to keep a count of how many times we have loaded the same chunk, just to make it easy for us to figure out when to remove the chunk. So we would then overlap with, you know what, I can just draw on the screen, I think. Why not? The hell? Hello? Seriously? Strange. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's see. Okay. So the first player that joins the game is gonna load the first 9 chunks. Let's say the player's here. The first player, right there. We're then loading all these chunks. If we look at the logic here, we just get that position. We don't care about any player data. We just want to know where to load chunks, pretty much in the chunk loader. That's all we care about. So we get this position. We get the tile map coordinate. We then calculate the chunk ID from that. So we don't care about tile map. We just want to know the chunk ID. That means we're gonna get the idea of this middle chunk right there, and that would be in the math. That would be the position of this corner that represent this chunk, and each top left corner represent each chunk, and that's the chunk ID. Because we don't use this as a position. We don't use this chunk, which is a position, which is an idea, for any sort of position-related work. We use it to identify this piece of chunk, which is why we have named this chunk ID and not chunk position. But either way, we get the center chunk ID right there, which we return out. And then we're gonna load the chunks and return the chunk data out of that. We'll send in the center chunk ID, which will get sent in here. Then we count the chunks around this and add it to our chunks loaded list. So we are calculating this chunk ID, this chunk ID, this chunk ID, and so all the way around, including itself, I think, actually. Yeah, including itself, for whatever reason. So we get all of these 9 chunks in an array now, in this array. And as long as we have not already loaded this, we are creating a new chunk object and add it to our dictionary. But if for whatever reason we have already loaded a chunk, let's say now we have a new player that joins. He joins in right there. This corner. That means we're gonna load in 9 chunks like this. Forgive my amazing art. Which means we're gonna be loading these corners as well as new corners. So when we hit these 4 top left corners, this is not gonna run because we will detect that we already have loaded it in our chunk dictionary. However, we will create new chunks for these. But what's gonna happen here when we reach at the end of these, loading all of these now, is that we're gonna detect that, hey, we have chunks in our chunk dictionary which we no longer loaded this time. And what's gonna happen is it's going to be removing these chunks even though we already have a player here. So in order to prevent that, we need to make some changes. Let me add the chunks dictionary. Yes, right. So in order to prevent that, we need a counter of sort. We need some sort of maintainer, some sort of retainer. I don't know if retain is the right word. Chunk counter? I don't know. Chunk load counter. Yeah, why not? Chunk load counter. That's a good name. So what I want to do is, regardless or not whether we create this, I want to increment. So I need to create it, and if it isn't, and then increment a value on that thing. So this would be, for example, the chunk ID, which is the key for this data. And the key will contain a number. So the first time we create this will be 1. So right here, we will add a dictionary with the key of the chunk ID and set it to 1 directly. Because now we load this 1 time, because it hasn't previously been loaded. So this is right. But now we have to add an else. Else, that means we have loaded this before, at some point. Then we want to increment it by 1, whatever that value is. Who knows? So, having done that, let's go back to the picture on the left side here. Forget the red area now for a little bit. A player spawns in there, right there. This is the player, the big ball. We get the cell ID for the middle chunk. We then load the other chunks around it by setting in the center chunk ID. We then append it into a local list of chunks, which will contain all of these. Then we also check for each chunk we load now. We will check if it already is in our local memory on the server side. If it isn't, which is the case now, we're going to be running here on every single one of them. So every single one of them is going to get a value of chunk load counter of the ID, which means each and every chunk will have a set value of 1. This is never going to run, at least not the first time. So now, when a second player joins with the color red, we are going to be loading this first. You know, we do the center first, but then we get around to the first one. Whichever it is, I don't know if it's actually going to be the top left or it's going to be the bottom right, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, you load the first chunk that is shared. What's going to happen is you do the job as you normally would. You append it to our local list, and then you detect that it's already in our list. Then you increment the counter by 1. So now suddenly these will get a value of 2. These will have a value of 1. So now at the end of everything, we'll get here. And this is when the red player joins. We'll get to here at the end of loading everything here and counting everything. Then it's going to be checking all our keys, our chunk IDs in our chunk dictionary. I guess I should name this to chunk ID key or something. Whatever. And now we haven't implemented this, by the way, the use case. We want to prevent them from admin. We need to do something. If the chunk loader doesn't have that, first we need to check this one. We need to decrease this one for the whatever ID is for the key. So this we have to decrease by 1. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Because we know it has been created. It's used. Hopefully. But we're gonna decrease it by 1 either way. So if now, by chance, the chunk load counter with the value using the key, this will return the value. That'll be, you know, 1, it can be 2, it can be 0, whatever. If this is now less than 1, meaning 0, or for whatever reason -1 if that happens, I don't know if it does, but if it were to happen anyway, we then want to delete it from our memory. So we're adding it to our list of chunks positions to delete, which is really chunk IDs. I'm going to be changing that after I'm done talking this. How about this? So what's happening here is when we get to this, and this, those top left chunks, this is gonna decrease now to 1, and guess what? This is gonna be false because it's not smaller than 1. We're not gonna do this. It's gonna skip it. So skipping this, skipping this, skipping this, skipping this, and it's gonna skip these as well. Actually, no, I'm a little wrong now. This wouldn't count until this player moves now. When this player is moved here, for example, then it would delete this. Is it right? Oh, wait, hold on, let me think. Let me think. Oh shit, no, it wouldn't be right. It's right when it spawns, but not right when it moves. Because when it moves, when this player suddenly moves up now, it's gonna get 3 here suddenly, and 3 here, and so on. So we need some sort of ID for each player. We need to ID the players in each chunk. So maybe each chunk should contain some data. So the chunk others themselves may want to contain some data then. But the idea is good with this, with counting. It's just not implemented correctly yet. Maybe we should use the chunk object itself. Instead. And if that's the case, we wouldn't need a chunk loader variable. We can just use the chunk. So when it's instantiated itself, it's automatically going to be set, have an internal value of 1 ID, and that. But maybe not a counter. Maybe we just need a list of players that's on the chunk. It's a tough one. We're getting close to something, but it's not quite right yet. Now what is chunk? Chunk was originally just a position, right? And now we're doing more work than maybe we want to. We are maintaining it also. I don't think that's what we want to do in the chunk loader. I don't think we want to do this in here. I think I can move this outside of this. And putting that responsibility to the world script, the world service, whatever we want to name this, to maintain the chunk loader. This is a wrong error, by the way. It's just the error itself is an error. Actually, no, it's right. It can't be loaded. Never mind, it's correct. It's a script error. Never mind. It's just or cyclic dependency. It's so annoying having this part. Let's see. Where was that? Yes, chunk loader. So maybe the chunk data should just be the chunks that belongs to this player, whatever it is. It doesn't matter if it's been loaded before. It does not matter. It's irrelevant. We should probably do that work on top of this place somewhere. Possibly in another class. Possibly. Maybe in a game state handler or something that will unload the data. Because this is just a chunk that I'm gonna send to the player after all. We don't need to keep this in memory, do we? I mean, we do. I know we do. And the reason we need that is because we want to, you know, validate whatever the player does and whatnot. But what is a chunk data? It's just a list of coordinates. So maybe we don't need to have this memory. And if that's the case, yeah, you know what? If we were to separate this a bit. So the red one would belong. What the hell? What the hell? Why is there two of them? Anyway. Yeah, why do that here? We don't need to do that here. Just load the data. Okay, and yeah, we should add. Ooh. Hold on. The chunk data should own the players of sort, or at least have a reference to the players. Yeah, no, the chunk data should have reference to the players in them. Whether it be one or many. But not here. This is the wrong place. We need somewhere on top of this again. So maybe this should return a list of chunks, and then we will use that list of chunks to populate and create a chunk data object, which includes a list of chunks, as well as the players in those chunks and whatnot. Yeah, that could be cool. Why not? Okay, let's try to make it easy for now. Let's remove the. Let's remove this. And we're not going to have a chunk dictionary. I'm not going to keep in memory what we previously had anymore. It doesn't matter. Although it would be convenient, though, wouldn't it? But what is a chunk? A chunk is just some very few data. Not a lot of data in there. Let's find the chunk object. Take a look. It's just ID, size, position in, and some other data we were supposed to use we haven't used yet. And some biome data which we are not going to use here. It's not going to be there. This is not going to be here. The draw is going to be gone. The clear is going to be gone. It's just a DTO at this point. An object to transfer data with. So we don't need to cache this. It's redundant. Yes. But you know what that means? That means we don't have... We're not going to use the chunk dictionary. We're going to return the chunks loaded list. This is the list of chunk ID. But no, it's not. It's not the IDs themselves we want the chunks. So maybe we can just add that here. So instead of appending a chunk ID, I'm gonna append the object of the chunk in there. So for each chunk load, we're gonna add a new chunk. For some reason we have a reference to ourselves. We don't need that anymore, we just need the chunk size. Do we need the chunk size? We need the chunk ID at least. Yeah. So basically we're just gonna create a new chunk. Well, let me take a look at the function. What function do we had in the chunk before? We had size, position. Position is calculated from ID times size, and this. Okay. Yeah. But I do want to change the order. I want the ID first, and then the chunk size. Yeah. Cool. This is good news. It makes it easier for us to work with this. So we don't need to do this anymore. We don't need to do this anymore. This class is much lighter now. But we haven't created a chunk class yet. We have to do that. That's why we had error now. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna return the list. An array of chunks. Let's name this to chunks instead. I'm not a fan of using methods and methods, or even a instantiation of a class inside a method. It makes it a bit more unreadable. Or rather, it makes it a bit more difficult to read. So in the chunk code, we have a chunk object. Now this chunk object does not belong to the chunk. This is something we're going to be using everywhere. So I'm wondering, where should I put it then? I don't know. World? Maybe we should have a separate folder for this. Well, let's try for now. I learned that we can easily move files and scripts later in the code, and it will automatically refactor itself to update the paths and references, which is really neat. That was something that wasn't in Godot in the earlier versions, which is kind of cool with the Godot 3. Who knows. So let's create the chunk. I can copy this, I think. Yeah. We don't need this, we don't need that. We do need the ID, we need the size, position, and position end. I don't know if you need position and position end. Yes, we do need that. We don't need the reference to the chunk code anymore. We need the ID first, and position second. I'm gonna name it chunk ID, so we expect to receive a chunk ID in. It may not be self-explanatory that it's a chunk ID we're receiving, so why not name it as such? But inside here, it's self-explanatory that this is a chunk ID. So adding chunk ID here will be silly. Now, is this private or not? Not really. I mean, if I were to want to force people to use get size, get position, then yes, maybe I should do that. No, I don't like that. Because in Godot, it's not meant that way. It's not made to be that way. So save data is not going to belong into the chunk. This is going to move. So we're going to take that one step up and beyond. Same with drawing and clearing. So this is just the data object container, which also happen to calculate the position and position end. But what I want from this, I want something from the chunk. I want to know if something is inside the chunk. So let's create some, let's shake something. Chunk is inside chunk. But this takes in a cell ID, by the way, or rather it takes in a cell coordinate. The way the math is done is we are calculating the position and using the chunk size, and the chunk size is the tile map cell size, the squares of each for the tile map. So one tile map square is a position which we're going to receive in here, which is what this represents. If I wanted a world position, I don't think this would be right. I don't know. Is cell coordinate inside chunk? So we take in a cell coordinate, or a tile map coordinate, I guess. Yeah. Let's see. Now position and position end is the start and the end, top left to the bottom right. So the X will be the left side of the entire thing. So if the position X should be lower or equal, I think. No, it should be lower. No, it should be lower than equal. Yeah, that's right. Because it may be 0. 0, 0 is correct. But not up to. So that would be tile map coordinate X. And tile map coordinate X is less than position end X. And that's the first check. We're not done yet. Position y less equal than tile map coordinate. Okay. Oh, I forgot the and at the end here. Let me wrap those around. Also, let me make it bigger. I feel like the screen is so tiny now. Okay, that's the first part. And position y is less than or equal to tile map coordinate y. And tile map coordinate y is less than position end y. Yes, now it's great. That's it. That's the check. Is this coordinate inside the position start and position end? Yes. Then we have a function for that. And this is what I mean. This is what I would use this for. Instead of asking for something and then do the math myself, I just tell it to, hey, tell it to do something. You know, tell me whether or not it's inside. Yes or no. Not maybe. Okay, if you have that and that, okay, you can figure it out. Just give me. So now we have that, which we may or may not use. I don't know. So now this works. We have now a list of chunks, and we're going to return the chunks via the load chunks. So get chunks is what I really want now, not chunk data. We don't need this anymore. Don't need that. We don't need it. Do we need a time? Yeah, we need a time. Chunk distance we need. Chunk size we need. Yes, very good. Very good. Now this is the class. This is the chunk loader. It's going to load the chunks. Okay, let's see. How are we going to use this? What time is it? Okay, I have a little bit more, then I'll end for today. Let's see. We now have chunks. Let's test this out. What happens if I print a string of this? I forgot the tile map here. Let's just set new. Can I do this? Get chunks, that's the name. There we go. Reference. Okay, that's not very helpful. Let's try to get the ID for the first chunk. There it is. Yay, it works. Okay, good. So that hopefully also means that we have a size of 9. Right. Right. Yeah, it works. Very good. So that's the only purpose of the chunk, is to load the chunks. Nothing more. And I did a mistake. I mean, I do a lot of mistakes. The important part is to learn from them and realize you made mistakes. And that's the best part about development, because no matter how long you are working as a developer, you can be working 10 or 20 years and still not have learned more than someone that have worked 5 years. You may have more experience, yes, life experience, yes, but you may be a worse coder. You may have bad habits, you may do things the old-fashioned way, that sucks ass, but I don't know. This is the old one, the left is the old one. Okay, so we have the chunk. No, not save. Ah, shit. Let's see. So now we having the chunks. What do we want to do with it? What's our goal? What's the purpose of having the chunks to begin with? Well, we wanted to load something, right? We wanted to load the biomes in each of these chunks. So for each of those chunks, we want to draw something, right? We want to use them to draw the world. So how would we do that? I would probably do. I probably want to use the chunk for something, right? Now what would I want to use? I want to use the position of the chunk. And then the end position. Did I name this position end or position or end position? I hope it was position end. Let's see. Can I tell them it's a chunk here? No, I can't. Well, that sucks. Position end, yeah, that's correct. Good. If you look at our code here, I think we have something. Where are we drawing? Are we drawing anything here? Yeah, we are. We're telling the chunk to draw. Let's take a look at the chunk. In our old code, we use the position and position n to draw the biome. We have the chunk itself on the biome, the chunk data, which we are moving. We're going out. We are going wider, I guess. So let's copy this and see what we can do with this. So drawing takes in the position and the position end, and it just iterates through each x and y tile map coordinate, which is what this is. This is a tile map coordinate. So I guess I shouldn't rename this, shouldn't I? So we never have to remember this. This is the tile map coordinate start, tile map coordinate end. That's what it is. Yeah, why not? It's way more descriptive, for sure.
All highly skilled in weapons and biotic tactics. With me as absolute ruler. If you don't want to be a part of this incredible vision, then you can get a space taxi.
Is that right? Plus size? Not time size? Well, it is time size. I don't know. It worked before, at least. I have changed this as far as I know. Have I? No, I've not changed it. It's the same.
I'm TJ Laser, expert with lasers and phaser.
What am I listening to? Let's find something else. I want some tavern music. Do we have some tavern music? Where is it? I know I have it somewhere. There we go, relaxing. Let's see, is tile coordinate inside chunk? Yeah, we have to update those names as well, don't we? Position is the start. And then we need the end coordinate, which is right there. Yay, perfect. That is that. Now what is size? Size is not just size, it's something. It's a tile map size. Tile map cell size is what it is. Isn't it? No, it's not that. It's a chunk. It's the number of tile maps in a chunk. Number of tile maps in a chunk. Tile maps in a chunk. Chunks. Nej. Tile map. Coordinates per chunk is what it is. It's a bit of a mouthful though. A bit of a mouthful. Coordinates per chunk. Now that would make a bit more sense, wouldn't it? Make changes to use this one to be more readable. So chunk ID times coordinates per chunk. Then we get the coordinate start. It's a bit confusing, isn't it? No, it's right. We get the tile map coordinate start. I don't know what the name is. What Multiply by the size of the chunk. Chunk size. I guess chunk size is the right name. Yeah, it's a chunk size, my god. Because it's 32. But 32 what? Whatever unit it is. The unit of the chunk size is the tile map coordinate. As confusing as that is, it's not meters. It has a value, like meters, for example, or you know, stones or pebbles, whatever you use. So this would be tile map. Tile map coordinates. Okay, let's not confuse myself with this. Let's just change the chunk size and leave it at that. Yes. World. Now this has changed. Chunk start, chunk end. That makes sense, right? Maybe. Let's see. Biomes doesn't exist, by the way, which is why we have the errors now. Let's see. Can I It's the star coordinate, right? Yeah. Why not? Yeah, I did that. That's what I was thinking. For each chunk, I also updated the neighboring tiles by -2 and 2. So we're going out a little bit beyond this. So we make sure to overlap the chunks loading. Okay, that's good. It's good that we initially did it that way at least. Yeah, but do you really want to draw this? The drawing part. We don't really want to draw anything on the server side. At least. What is it? So we can cut this out after we have moved this to the client, I think. What we care about is the generation of trees and rocks and whatnot. Anything that's interactable is what we care about on the server side. Let's remove that one. Let's see what happens if I run this. Ooh, very nice. Okay. You definitely get all the data, so that's good. That's very good. That is very good. So give me 1 second, taking a little break. Be right back. empty. Draw an X and draw an Y. I don't want to draw, but I need to draw in order to make sure everything works when you move it to the client side. Because we need to make the code pretty much identical. Except I'll comment out the drawing part once it works. Oh. We also need to make sure to set up the tile map properly with the values we want. There's a lot to do, not a lot of time. Let's see. I guess we can start with the player loader, maybe. How would that work? Let's create a player loader. The purpose of a player loader. What is it? I guess it's not really a player loader as much as just to... what's the goal of this? It's to get a list of players in our world. Get a list of players that we want to load. It's the purpose of this class. So I don't know if the player load is the right name or not, but that's the purpose of this class. What function would that be? Pairs in chunks. I guess that could be a good one. And then we take in the chunks, which is an array of chunks. Now whatever that is, I don't know. We need to return something. That will probably be also an array of players. With whatever that is, that can be DTOs, it can be something else. But that's the purpose of this. Let's see, world. Let's wait with this. Yeah, then this entire part is the drawing of biome. So I can probably comment all that out. Yeah. And as far as I know, I don't think I need... I'm just putting in a method for now. We're probably going to extract that out into its own class using a biome loader. This is the loader controller, loader service loader. Let's see. Okay, let's create a player loader. Let's also create a player loader class name on that other script. No, it's not a node, this is just a class name. There it is. So what do you want to do? Well, using this we want to... I mean, the goal of the world right now, besides preparing the data we want to send the players that join, we want to be... Oh my god, that's a pickle, isn't it? Because when you start the game, if no one is in the server, we're not really loading anything, right? It wouldn't make sense to load furniture or whatever, trees, when there's no one in the server. Now, what would make sense is to prepare data ahead of time, so it will be faster to give the player the data. That's what would make sense. But we don't really know who's gonna join next. Like, are we gonna keep everything in memory all the time? Probably not. So there will be some... I expect there to be some loading. For each player that joins, they will have to load everything, then and there. So if the server doesn't already have loaded anything, we're gonna load it and then send it to the player. So it's gonna be a loading bar. And that's how normally servers work, I think. The server doesn't just, reserve a spot, a golden throne for each player when they're not here, in anticipation of their arrival. No, that's not how they work. So instead is everything in Ready would probably be moved to a signal of sorts. So when a player joins, we then execute this process. The process of loading the chunks, process of loading the data and the player data, and building the object, building the data we're going to send the player that joins us. What info does the player that joins us need? It needs the player. It needs the entities. That would be trees, that would be bushes, that would be anything that the player can interact with. It can be wood they can chop, it can be items on the ground, it can be furniture, whatever. Anything. That's not a part of the biome generation. Maybe. We'll see. I may separate that into categories. Maybe we'll have entities that will be exclusively items. And then we'll have what did I name the other ones? I think I found some environment. Yeah, environment, for example. That will be trees, rocks, you know, stone, craftable, but stuff you would use in a survival sandbox game. I'm thinking. Items on the ground, placed entities, well, placed furniture maybe? Like something like that. I mean, anything you can interact with really is what is the goal. Yeah, anything that's interactable that's made by a player, not the player, any player. When you start out in a world, it's not going to be anything. There's not going to be furniture laying around, just finding in the woods. I mean, maybe if I... No, I'm not going to do that. So any entities will be created by any player, but a player somewhere. Maybe in the future by NPCs of sorts, I don't know. Entities can also be something you buy from an NPC, maybe a shop. You buy a share from a shop, NPC shop. Guess what? That share is an entity. When you put it outside in the world somewhere. We're not gonna load all inventory like this. The inventory is gonna be, I think, separate call. I don't think I want to do that at the same time as I load the world. It's not as much as part of the world as it is a part of the player. The world is going to load a portion of the player data that the player needs. Like, we don't authenticate the player in the world, for example. We don't keep a record of the inventory the player has in the world. We keep a track of the world, what's on the ground, what's you know, what you see, not what you have in your pocket. That will be done by an inventory gateway or something like that. But we'll get to that sooner or later. But that's it. I have to end today. And we'll continue this probably either later today or tomorrow. No promises. I'll just show up someday. So don't forget to, you know, follow on Twitch if you want some notification. Because you never know. Suddenly I'm there and suddenly I'm not. So have a good day. Bye bye.